Hey friends, I'm Greg Nettle, and I serve as president of Stadia Church Planting, where our vision is for every child on the planet to have a church. We do that by helping you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation. I'm really excited about this episode of the Church Planting Podcast. I have a very special guest on this show, Brian Ziegler. He's a church planter. He's the senior leader of Rivertree Fairless. He is an adventurer, and he has an incredible life story that will both encourage you and inspire you as you go about your own church planting and leadership. Brian Ziegler, so excited to have him with us on the Church Planting Podcast today. Well, I'm really excited to have my friend and church planter, Brian Ziegler, on the Church Planting Podcast. Welcome, Brian.
Greg, brother, so good to be on your podcast, man. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So excited on the other end of this.
All right. Thanks, man. Hey, there's some really exciting stuff happening. What's happening this weekend at the church you launched?
Greg, man, I'm super excited. This is our 3-year anniversary here at Rivertree Fairless. So we're celebrating, man. We've got testimony, we've got baptisms. We've got food trucks, man. We are just excited to see God moving in the local church.
Okay, so you're 3 years in, and how many services are you doing now?
Yeah, right now we're at 2 services, right around 250 or so people, and we're just keep moving.
Okay, and you just moved in, if I remember correctly. You moved in recently into a new building.
Yeah, Greg, we've actually moved 3 times in 3 years, if you can believe that. Started at Fairless High School, meeting in their auditorium, and from there we moved to a small church that was actually gifted to us with some land, and then we just recently, about 2 months ago, moved into a church right across the street from Fairless High School, our $1 million beachfront property, right there. So we're excited. Couldn't be more pumped.
It's been really fun, Brian, because talk about this. You guys launched 3 years ago, which arguably was one of the most challenging times to launch a new church. What was going on?
Yeah, Greg. I took about 15 years before I finally decided, okay, it's time to plant a church, right? I came up with every excuse not to plant. And finally, I had this holy discontent moment. I'm wrestling with God. I'm excited to plant. And we plant, and bam, 2020 happens. And, every excuse goes in your head like, oh, man, this isn't going to go good, or people aren't going to come out. And we've just been so blessed because our people are so amazing that they rally around us. The schools allowed us to keep meeting, and we've just continued to grow. God's continued to bring people. We've continued to gather favor. And from that, I can't explain it, Greg. I'm not a smart person, but I just know that the Holy Spirit is moving, and it is alive at Rivertree Fairless.
Well, Brian, you're one of the most passionate people I've ever met in my life, and you planted in the middle of the pandemic. I remember talking with you at that time, and I got to be honest with you, everything in me wanted to say, Brian, don't launch now. But I couldn't, because I just could see it in your heart and your commitment to the calling and so forth. And so you're saying the school let you meet the whole time through the pandemic? There was no shutdown?
Yeah, Greg. So huge blessing. Fairless High School, they were amazing. So they really allowed us to continue to meet. Now, we came up with a great cleaning process every time afterwards. We would have extra janitors there. But yeah, they let us meet. We social distanced. We kept masks on. But I think for us, that was the pivotal point for us, that we didn't shut down when we gathered that momentum, that they loved us enough and they cared about us enough to allow us to stay open. And from that, it kind of catapulted us to where we're at right now.
Okay, Brian, so you're in a pretty rural community. Talk about that. So why Fairless area?
Great question. So Susie and I knew that was one of the non-negotiables for her when we planted. Well, she said, I'm from a small town, so is she. And she said, whenever we plant, it's got to be in a small town area. I want the community involved. I want the schools involved. And we both we didn't ever go looking for the Fairless community, kind of found us. So we wanted to go to a place, Greg, that was already on mission for Jesus. Things were already happening, and we could just kind of slide in and partner with what was already going on. And little did I know that there was a whole group of people just waiting and praying for a new church plant to come in and kind of take the lead. And that's how we ended up at Fairless.
All right. So, Brian, I've known you a long, long time now, and I know your story. You've written a book about your story, and which tell us the name of your book and how we can get it. First of all.
Yeah, the book is called A Paralyzing Redemption, and you can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you get your books at.
Okay. So, talk about the title, "Paralyzing." Give us the nutshell. Why'd you title it that?
Yeah. So, when I was 21 years old, Greg, I had achieved for myself every goal that I had set for myself. So I played at high level at basketball in high school, and then went to college at the University of Akron. So I was playing college basketball, and I was really excited that I had finally like attained these goals that I set for myself. Um, but something inside of me, Greg, like still like was empty. So my parents raised me going to the church, and I didn't know Jesus, but I know Jesus was a guy that you went to in times of trouble. So at 21 years old, at 2 o'clock in the morning, after a night of partying with my friends, like I went into the middle of my bedroom, hit my knees, and for the very first time had an authentic prayer with Jesus and asked him to make radical change in my life. I remember saying, Jesus, you need to do this like by any means necessary. So that dangerous prayer really catapulted my life because 2 weeks later, I was involved in a horrible car accident. I was thrown from the window of my Jeep Wrangler, landed on my neck, and was paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh man, Brian. So you go from being, I mean, I knew you, star athlete, everything going for you. You give your life to Jesus. So it seems like everything should turn and be up and to the right again. And it has been, I know, in so many ways, but at that moment now you're laying in a hospital bed and you find out you're paralyzed from the neck down, bro. I mean, did you have thoughts of saying, well, Jesus, to hell with this, man. This wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah, Greg, full transparency, and I'll keep it PG because I'm on your podcast and I love you. But like, I remember that doctor coming in and the three statements that he said to me. He said, Brian, you know what happened to you? And I said, no, I have no idea. He said, well, you have a broken neck. You'll never walk again. And you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. Those three statements like just did not sit well with my mindset whatsoever. And he told me there was a 10% chance I would ever regain any function. So yeah, I was done with it. I was upset with God. I said, man, I did everything you asked me to do. I was trying to turn away. And how could this happen? So for 4 years, Greg, I went into this like wilderness period where I was like, just like pissed at the world. And I was mad. I was like, I'm just going to go back to doing what I did before. And that was, girls, drugs, drinking. And I even started, selling drugs as well.
Oh man, I'm sorry. And part of the redemption story. Okay. So then what turned 4 years of darkness? But then what turned to kind of get you back on a good path?
Yeah, great question. And really the story the star of my story other than Jesus has always been my wife, Susie, who is the most amazing woman in the world. So when I met Susie, I was a hot train wreck. I was paralyzed. I was drinking, doing all those different things, but she still loved me, Greg, like no matter what. She never asked me to change. She never said, get your life together. She sang in a worship band. She loved Jesus and she was following it. And there was something different about her. And like, I wanted what she had. So I asked her one day what it was. She said, well, it's simple, Brian. Like I love Jesus. So she said, there's a church down the road and it's this church called Rivertree that I think you should go and try. So Greg, one Sunday, and I'm not saying this to boast or whatever, but I went into Rivertree probably still hungover, smelling like alcohol, cigarettes, and I went all the way to the top. You know what I'm talking about, the very top where nobody could see me.
Top of the bleachers, baby.
Top of the bleachers, brother. And I tried to hide. I tried to hide from Jesus. I didn't want anybody to see me there. I was just trying to check off the list for my wife, for my girlfriend at the time. Well, this young church planter named Jason walks out there, and he's wearing a Cleveland Browns jersey, and he starts preaching about redemption and love and this Jesus that'll meet you no matter what you've done or where you've been. So, Greg, like after he was done, I must have looked like a crazy person because I don't walk real well, anyways. But I went from the top of those bleachers all the way to the front of that stage, and I said, "Listen, man, I don't know who you are. I feel like I'm supposed to be around you." And that right there catapulted this year-long relationship that I had with Jason, and really the church planting journey.
Okay. So an amazing event that takes place at church. Jason Lance preaching at Rivertree. Um, but okay, you were in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the neck down. Now you're at the top of the bleachers, and you're walking to the front of the. What happened, bro?
Yeah, so I get really excited. So I left out a few details. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I'm really hard-headed when it comes to people telling me what I can and can't do. So I prayed to Jesus when I was in the hospital up at Metro Health, and I told him, I was like, okay, I will continue to follow you. I will continue to give my life to you. But you need to help me out here, Lord. So as I was continuing to do rehab, I attacked it just like I would anything else for basketball or sports. And I was in therapy, 8 or 9 hours a day. I was doing everything I could to walk. And eventually I started to see some return come back. So first it started with my finger, then it started with my foot, and then my knees. And before you know it, at the end of 2.5 months, Greg, like, I was actually able to stand up. And my surgeon came in and he freaked out. He's like, "I've never seen anything like this before. This is a miracle." So yeah, I was in that 10% that was able to actually get up. But instead of like looking to God and praising him for that, I got angry with him and mad at him that he took the one thing that I cared about, and that was basketball.
And so, okay, so move now. You've met Jason. You're spending a year, I'm assuming, kind of in a discipling relationship with him. Where's it go from there?
Yeah, so my life got better with him. He taught me what it looked like to be a follower of Jesus, what it looked like to be a good husband. Married my beautiful wife Susie, by the way. Got a real job, big boy job, where I was, making a lot of money. I was learning what it looked like to follow Jesus, and he invited me, Greg, onto his leadership team at his church plant called Love Canton. So I got to be on the ground floor of what it looked like to have a core team, to have these prayer meetings that last until like 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to be a part of Launch Sunday, where we had like 29 people at the bottom of Trinity Church in Canton. So like the church bug was like starting to infect me in a good way, but I still kept myself far enough at a distance that I didn't really jump when I knew the Lord wanted me to.
Okay, so this is fascinating. I've had Jason Lance on the church planning podcast. Amazing story, amazing leader. I love Jason. But I think what I'm loving about this story, Brian, is number one, you were willing to walk down to the front and engage Jason. But so many leaders, they may not have engaged you back, right? The fact that Jason saw something in you, that he was willing to, spend a year discipling you, that he invited you on the journey with him. How important has that turned out to be, and how has that affected your life as a leader?
Yeah, the fact that he was willing to just have a conversation with me, Greg, and at that point in time, I think he saw something in my eyes that knew that I was desperate. And he met me the very next day. And not only did he meet with me for probably 3 or 4 hours that day, he invited me back to his house. He allowed me to meet his family. He allowed me to be around his kids. He poured into me in a way that I had never seen before. Got a chance to be baptized, and just for him to take that kind of just love and care for me, and just I am forever grateful for him. And now things come full circle where I get to actually work underneath Jason. Like God couldn't have orchestrated a cooler plan for me. And Jason and I have taken trips around the world together. We're still great friends. And we still are in this discipleship relationship. It's amazing.
Okay, so I gotta just, because I know, you and Jason both, and just your story, paralyzed from the neck down, angry at God. And a few years ago, man, you and Jason made a trip to Peru Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is you get two people that are wired like Jason and I together. Look out. So we decided to come up with this crazy idea where we wanted to celebrate Jesus for what he did, the healing in my life, this transformation that happened. But we also just wanted to take a cool guys trip to go somewhere and just kind of hang out. So we decided we were going to do multiple things. We were going to raise money for Compassion International. We were gonna go to this place. We are gonna meet our sponsored kids. So, Greg, we go there, and I'm pretty sure all of our wives thought we were crazy.
Yep.
My doctor, he basically said, "Nice knowing you" to me. He was not okay with that whatsoever. But we went and we were able to climb this mountain together. And like it was excruciating, it was painful. But when we got to the top, the money shot. When we got to the very top and we're looking down and we're just like reflecting on what Jesus has done, not only in my life, but in Jason's life and everybody else that were there. We were all in tears. We were all weeping because like it came full circle right there, because I remembered back at that point on that ledge, when I was on my knees crying out to the Lord to make a change in my life. Greg, I realized he did make a change. He answered that desperate prayer, and it was the way of that accident. Because if that car accident never happened, man, I would have never taken these steps toward Jesus, because I need to be rebuilt from the ground up and rebuilt in his image. And I got to witness that with like my discipler on the top of that mountain.
Okay, so from there now, talk about the next steps in your journey. So when did it start? You're going, hey, I think I'm called to plant a church.
Yeah. So I spent 10 years in the business world doing corporate finance, and I thought that was it. I thought that's what I was going to do. I thought I was always going to be involved in helping to plant churches, just from the financial part of it and the leadership part. And I was good there, Greg. My family was good. We're like, okay, nice salary, 401k, vacation. Let's just stay there. But I think for me, the journey really started at 2 o'clock in the morning consistently when I started wrestling with God. And you know that feeling. It's like
I do.
holy discontent is happening inside of you, and you're supposed to do something, but I'm coming up with every reason not to do it, right? So finally, when it became just too much for me, Greg, I reached out to the voice of reason in my life, and that was my wife. And I just said, Susie, what should I do? And she's like, well, duh, you're supposed to plant a church. I've been waiting for you to come to me with that request. So when she said yes, that's really when it started, Greg.
Okay, and so at that point now, I mean, Brian, your health is still challenging. Were people gathered around going, "Yay, Brian, let's go do this"? What was the response, man? From your family, your friends, from Rivertree, from Jason? How'd they respond?
Yeah, so there was a nice mix of, yes, you were called, because I was looking for the affirmation, Greg. Honestly, I was looking for a way out. So I was looking for somebody to say, no, you shouldn't do this,
Yeah.
or no, we don't see this in you. But it was actually the opposite. They really thought that I was affirmed to do this, and that I need to do this. And they really rallied around me. But the reality of what you said is true, Greg. I mean, I battle with major, not like these are major health issues that I deal with. And they're a little afraid of that, but they also know that God has got this. And I think, Greg, one of the most fascinating things that I've realized in this church planting journey that I've had right now is, right now I have this utter reliance on the Holy Spirit, where, like, Greg, if he doesn't show up, it's just not going to work for me. So, I mean, if something happens in my life, if I don't take my medicine, or if I trip on stage, or I have issues with like bowels and bladders and liver and kidney. I've got a lot of damage going on inside me right now. So I don't just like think about, oh, I got to preach a sermon, or I got to shepherd this person. Like, there's a lot of other stuff that go into just me operating each and every week. But like this reliance that I have on the Holy Spirit, and the support that I have from Rivertree, the support that I have from Stadia, the support that I have from my friends and family, it's everything I could possibly imagine. It's what drives me every day to not only want to keep this church going, but also continue to plant other thriving churches as well.
Well, Brian, this is why I wanted you on the church planting podcast. I knew your story. I'm sitting here right now and I'm going, God, give me the passion of this young man. And you're just setting an example for all of us. So, Brian, there's lots of leaders out there right now, man. I mean, the pandemic was hard on them. Church planting, is hard. Some of them, their marriage is in trouble. Some of them are having trouble with their kids. But I mean, you've been through some of the darkest. What would you say to those leaders as they walk through that stuff?
Great question, Greg. And that's one of my favorite things to do is talk to people who are kind of wrestling. Hey, should I take the next step to church plant or should I hang in there? I think the best advice that I have right now, Greg, is just from what I've been through. And that's like, after you've done, the praying, obviously, and after you've sought wise counsels, I think the biggest obstacle I had is I kept looking for reasons to disqualify myself from church planting. So my encouragement, instead of looking for those reasons to disqualify, look at all the reasons why you're qualified, why you're called, why people are for, why you have a love and passion for it. Because honestly, like, you do your part, the Holy Spirit will show up, and it's neat. Your church, your vision is needed in this world. What we've created, what God created at Rivertree Fairless, is not like any of the other campuses that we have at Rivertree, but it's uniquely the exact thing that needs to happen for the body of Christ in Fairless. So I would say, do the hard work, pray, seek wise counsel, but then go. Allow the Spirit to just lead you.
Okay, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, I think within the last couple of years, so you did the big climb in Peru, and then you did something on the Appalachian Trail. Did you do part of that or something like that?
Yeah. So we did 40 miles on the Appalachian Trail to raise money for a organization here called the Christian Children's Homes of Ohio, where I actually adopted my son from. And we decided like we wanted to go and raise money, but also do a really cool adventure. So we took five leaders who were passionate about discipleship, who were passionate about Jesus, and we camped and we hiked. And Greg, I will tell you, that was the most difficult climb of my entire life.
Yeah.
So they classified the area that we were climbing at as mild. So I don't know who makes that classification, Greg, but man, that was like, I thought I was going to be walking on like a towpath trail.
Yeah.
But we were like traversing down trees and petrified rock. And it was probably the most difficult thing that we've ever done. But man, was it worth it when we were able to hand that check to those kids over there at CCHO.
Okay, Brian, then I got to ask this. What's next?
Great question. So what's next is I stood on the stage at Rivertree Fairless day one, on opening day, and I told our church that we were going to be a pregnant church. Everybody looked back at me like I was crazy or they didn't know what they meant. So we continued to paint this picture that, hey, when we got to a certain number of people, we were going to look to plant another church. And guess what, Greg? We are inching closer to that number. So I'm going to be on stage this Sunday talking about our next church plant and what that's going to look like. So that's step number one. And step number two is we are going to do another climb. We're going to do another hike. We're going to continue to push ourselves. I don't know where that's at yet. I may have to rely on you because I know you've climbed a lot. But Greg, I'm never going to stop pushing myself. God has given me a gift to get up on these 2 feet, and I feel like an obligation to the rest of the people who are still in chairs, who are honestly better people than me. They deserve to be up. But every opportunity that I have to be standing, I'm going to live, I'm going to glorify Jesus, and I'm going to just try to take his message of redemption everywhere I go.
Hey, Brian, I love you, brother. I am unbelievably proud of you. I am grateful for you. Thank you for staying the course. Everyone, thanks, Brian Ziegler, Church Planting Podcast.
Love you, Greg. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for listening to the Church Planting Podcast. The Church Planting Podcast is part of the Stadia Podcast Network. To find more great episodes and to see how Stadia can help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation, be sure to check out stadia.org/podcasts.